Good afternoon. My name is Kasim and I'm the author of this brand new book. And this is my author's copy, by the way, of my brand new book, Why Should I Talk About My Feelings? I'm a Man, How to Get Boys and Men into Therapy and why they'll actually want to stay. And I wanted to read you a little bit from the book, in case you are wondering what the book is about, what it sounds like, what the tone of it is, just so you can get a bit of a flavor that might perhaps push you over the edge to getting the book, which I recommend you have a look at. So I'm going to read from the author's note. This is just something that I begin the book off with, and it goes something like this. In January of 2025, as wildfires ripped across parts of Los Angeles, I found myself sitting in a McDonald's on the outskirts of Leicester, having arrived early in order to avoid morning rush hour traffic for a 2-day designated safeguarding lead course I was taking. As I tried to dip my hash brown into the tiny white pot of ketchup, my attention was drawn to a little girl playing nearby with her mother. She couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years of age, with big blue eyes, brown hair tied back in a ponytail, a pink Nike puffer jacket, and matching pink Nike trainers. They were playing on one of those machines where you drop a coin in and it swirls round and round before disappearing into the slot at the bottom. The little girl was completely excited by this simple task, her face lighting up with pure joy and excitement as the coins spiraled down. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile and think, how can a child find so much happiness in something so simple? But then that joy of watching her lost its intensity as I thought about the course that I was about to take. I started reflecting on what safeguarding was all about. At its heart, it's meant to stop abuse, harm, or neglect from happening. One of its main aims is to protect children's health and development and make sure that they grow up in a safe, caring environment. But then I found myself asking an even bigger question. Why do we even need to prevent harm to children in the first place? Why would anybody want to harm a child? Every parent that I know will do everything and will do whatever it takes to keep their child safe. So how does it happen? How do people even get a chance to harm children? I started to realize that safeguarding mostly focuses on protecting children from physical harm, and don't get me wrong, that's hugely important. But it doesn't always protect them from the other types of harm, like emotional abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, or even harm caused by organizations or institutions. It doesn't always safeguard them against financial exploitation, discrimination, or even situations where children are trapped in modern slavery within families. Safeguarding is highly effective in protecting children and young people who are visibly struggling, those facing challenges in their family environments or experiencing multiple adverse experiences, ACEs. It works well in situations where a single parent is raising multiple children alone, when a child is frequently late to school, absent altogether, or is arriving unkept. It also proves effective when a student's behavior is disruptive or when concerns arise, such as being caught stealing. In these cases, safeguarding interventions can make a real difference. But safeguarding often misses the children who appear to be living in stable, picture-perfect families. These are the kids growing up in households where both parents are present, both have good jobs, the family is financially secure, and they attend religious services at the mosque, church, or temple. It does not account for situations where caregivers are respected pillars of the community, like religious leaders. When a child from this kind of background doesn't outwardly show signs of struggle, maybe they're masking their pain or just managing to cope, they can slip through the cracks. Yet, Between the ages of 0 and 18, immense emotional, spiritual, and psychological harm can still occur, even if everything looks fine on the surface. Safeguarding as it stands often overlooks the children, leaving them vulnerable to damage that's harder to detect, but no less significant. That little girl was brimming with potential, curiosity, and delight. Yet somewhere along the way, many of us lose that spark. Something shifts between childhood and adulthood. Something that seems to interfere with how we function as human beings. I've often wondered what that something is, especially when it comes to boys and men. I just haven't been able to reconcile or understand how a child can be born innocent, as every child must be, can grow into something we later see presenting with high narcissistic traits, someone with bipolar disorder, or someone who is clinically depressed, has generalized anxiety disorder, or struggles with psychotic episodes. How does a child become someone exhibiting antisocial behavior, involved in criminal activity, an abuser, or addicted to drugs, ultimately destroying themselves and those around them? In my pursuit to answer this question and trying to figure these things out, I came across something called therapy. Now, I know that if you're reading this, therapy might seem like an obvious place to start answering some of these questions, but it wasn't to me. I've come to realize it's not obvious to many boys and men, particularly those from different cultural backgrounds. What I've discovered is that therapy doesn't just begin to explain what happens in the gap between innocence and dysfunction, it also has the power to heal. Therapy can help boys and men transform, grow, and discover parts of themselves that were repressed, detached, fractured, split, or lost along the way. It can even unlock parts of themselves they didn't even know existed. I wanted to tell as many people as I could about it because I was one of those people who it helped. I wanted to show boys and men that they have choices about how they live, how they showed up, how they manifest in the world. They don't have to remain perpetually sick, depressed, anxious, or phobic. These issues can be worked on collaboratively with a therapist. Not everything can be solved, of course. For instance, there are some men who are abusers, those who manipulate, coerce, and essentially establish cults in various forms. This might be a one-to-one cult dynamic with a spouse, a manipulative relationship with their children, a toxic workplace dynamic, or even an unhealthy sports environment. No matter how much support, help, or insight is offered to these men, some will refuse to change because they don't want to. But that in itself led me to ask an even deeper question. Why wouldn't someone want help? Why wouldn't someone strive for joy, happiness, connection, love, intimacy, and a life free of shame? Why wouldn't someone want to grow, progress, and live a more fulfilled life? Why would a rose choose to grow in the desert rather than a lush rainforest? Why would it settle in sand instead of fertile soil? What I've come to realize is that some boys and men are raised in environments that make it nearly impossible for them to thrive, to dream, or to achieve their full potential, and no one has noticed these. These boys fell through the systems around them that were supposed to safeguard them. These systems stripped away the conditions they needed for growth, leaving them to struggle against the odds that they should never have had to face in the first place. Human functioning, understanding emotions and relationships, and empathy has not been a priority in society when it comes to boys and men. Can we honestly say that most parents and carers sit their sons and daughters down, especially their sons, and have a real conversation about domestic violence? About how it looks, the damage that it causes to families, and the cost that it carries? I don't think so. Can we honestly say that across British society, parents and male relatives are working with their sons to heal family trauma, explore parenting, define empathy, or discuss relationship dynamics and communication? I don't have the data, but my impression is that this simply isn't the norm. I've come to realize that throughout human history, society and culture has relied on men to be providers and protectors, especially in our British society. But that has come at a cost: men's internal well-being. Many men I know are hardworking and dedicated to their families. If you speak to their loved ones and those in their circles, it's clear that they take pride in providing and protecting. That's not the issue. The real issue, the one that has caused countless problems within family system, is this: are these men happy? Are men in British society able to live not just as functioning individuals, but as their fullest, most authentic selves? Are they fulfilled? Do they enjoy their daily lives? Do they have meaningful friendships, experience joy, or feel free to express all aspects of their humanity? British society has progressed significantly, which is fantastic. Men are no longer needed to be the sole providers or protectors, many people would argue. Yet, many still feel obligated to play that role or want to, which is fine. But society has moved on. Now, men are expected to be healthy internally and successful externally. I have been wondering if it is really possible to be both, and how in the world a man can go about that in this current society that we live. For many men, it seems there is no choice. If they don't get with the program and become emotionally and internally functional while also achieving external success, you risk being sidelined by British society. The problem is we haven't created the space for men to emotionally adapt to the new expectations, and that has left a void. So that is a little bit of my book. This is the author's copy, which is why it looks like this. So the book is called Why Should I Talk About My Feelings? I'm a Man, How to Get Boys and Men into Therapy, and Why They'll Actually Want to Stay. I encourage you to go and get a copy of the book and see if it is for you, and see if perhaps you may be able to take something from it. I wrote it for professionals. I wrote it for anyone who's really interested in the subject. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a look at it. Bye for now.